Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishikam Vitam Sya Om Agyanatimarandasya Gyanajana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gurva Bhistam Supurakam Gurganana Sisha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanugam Govinda Abhidam Ujwalam Bharatanum Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Bande Vishwa Gurun Shah Divyat Bhagavat Prem Noe Bija Pranam Devam Divyatanum Suchanda Varanam Balarka Shelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vidyam Buddhim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Banditam Shubharam Mareka Sharanam Nyashishvara Shridharam Vanshakopatarubyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavenibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishe Namah. So we're reading the Sri Chaitanya Bhagawat by Srila Vrindaban Das Thakur. This translation is done by Sarvabhauma Das. So, Antya-khanda, chapter 3. This is the deliverance of Sarvabhauma and the journey to West Bengal. The Lord liked to perform Sankirtan upon the ocean shores. He built his residence near the beach and stayed swimming in the ocean of devotional bliss. The ocean experienced indescribable ecstasy, having the Lord's close association. Hence, Sri Rama Lakshmi Devi was born out of the ocean. Whatever sins the residents of Nilanchala may commit become completely cleansed simply by bathing in the ocean. Sri Ganga Devi, calculating the value of this golden opportunity, flows swiftly down from the Himalayas to merge herself into the ocean at Puri. The presence of Sri Krishna Chaitanya blessed the ocean and purified her waters. When Sri Chaitanya had first come to Nilanchala, the king, Sri Pratraparudra, was away waging war against the southern kingdom of Vijayanagar. In the meantime, Sri Chaitanya, after a long sojourn in Nilanchala, went back to Bengal. The Lord was feeling especially merciful towards Ganga Devi, so he returned to Bengal. Sri Vidyavachaspati was Sarvabhauma's brother. He was most gentle, charitable, and very saintly. One day, without prior notification, Sri Chaitanya arrived at his residence there in Bengal with all his servitors. Sri Vidyavachaspati, upon seeing that his guest was none other than the Lord of Vaikuntha, Sri Gaurasundar, fell like a rod at his lotus feet. The Brahmin host was so confused with extreme joy that he did not know what was the proper thing to do next. The Lord, also greatly happy to see the saintly Brahmin, embraced him and said, "I have a request. My heart is bent on going to Mathura, Vrindaban. I want to spend a few days here to bathe in the Ganga. Yet please find me a quiet bathing spot where crowds will not disturb me. Thereafter, I want you to help me start my journey to Braja. If you will help me to remain here, then you should make all these arrangements." Sri Vidyavachaspati attentively heard everything the Lord said and replied with great humility, "Oh, how fortunate are all the generations of my entire family, for we are receiving the dust from your lotus feet since you have now come to my house. My house and everything belongs to you, my Lord. Kindly remain here comfortably as long as you wish. I shall see that no one will know that you are here." The Lord was very content to hear Vachaspati's humble and sincere words, so he stayed there for a few days. yet how can one hide the sun? The Lord's arrival is very quickly known. Like wildfire, the word spread everywhere that Sri Chaitanya, the shining jewel of the sannyas order, was residing in the house of Sri Vidyavachaspati. The people experienced great exhilaration. They felt they were in Vaikuntha despite their earthly bodies. They became most jubilant and spontaneously chanted, Hari, Hari, forgetting their sons, wives, wealth, home, and everything else. The people became very excited and began to talk animatedly among themselves, saying, let us go and be blessed by the sight of his lotus feet. They made immediate preparations to set out and see the Lord, and so forgot almost all etiquette in their enthusiasm. A milling crowd moved towards Vidyavachaspati's house, all loudly chanting, Hari, Hari. All the regular paths and roads were full, so the people went off in all directions, stamping through the plants and bushes. The extraordinary influence and attractiveness of Sri Chaitanya is a most wonderful phenomenon, and thus he liberates all living entities. I shall now continue to describe this. Please listen attentively. People came unchecked, undeterred by the thorny bushes. They happily rushed to see the Lord. Areas which had been woody and wild were cleared away by the moving mass of people and quickly became makeshift pathways. All the people had only one thing on their tongues, the holy names of Sri Krishna. The people felt most blissfully expectant and talked among themselves. One said, I will fall at his feet, begging him to give me just this one benediction, that all my immaterial entanglements be severed. Another said, if I could see him just once with these eyes, then I shall consider that I have received everything obtainable. Why then should I ask anything more from him? Yet another said, I was hopelessly ignorant about his real position and potencies. Therefore, for so long I have only criticized him in a very offensive manner. Now I will clasp his lotus feet to my heart and beg him to tell me how I may get rid of all my offenses. A fatherly man said, my son is a compulsive gambler, and so I will beg the Lord to make him stop. Someone else said, the only boon I want is that I may always remain fixed at his lotus feet with my body, mind, and words, and never leave that shelter. Someone else said, what a wonderful opportunity. I only pray that I may never forget my dear Gaura Sundar. Talking in this manner, the people kept moving in a massive column, all of them feeling indescribable bliss. The milling masses converged on the ferry port, all wanting to be the first to cross the river. The boatmen were put into extreme anxiety as they saw the uncontrollable crowd piling into all the boats. Hundreds tried to pack into each boat, and finally the boats began to cave in, breaking under the enormous weight. As some compensation for their loss, the people then handed over their clothes to the boatmen, and with unconstrained joy, continued their endeavors to cross over the river. In the absence of boats, they became innovative and used any available means. Some tied upturned earthen water pots around their chests to float across. Others made rafts out of banana tree trunks and drifted across. Those who could swim had great fun swimming here and there in the currents. The whole atmosphere reverberated with such tumultuous sounds of chanting, Hari, 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 that it replaced and pierced the outer covering of the material cosmos. Srila Sridhar said so many people were crossing the river that all you could see was heads. They were trying to follow Mahaprabhu? Well, Mahaprabhu had been in Puri for some time, and he came. This is described when he suddenly showed up at the house of Vidyavachaspati. And he asked Vidyavachaspati to keep his presence a secret, but the word just spread, and everybody came. And that's the beginning of Mahaprabhu wants to go to Vrindaban, but there's so many people that he can't go. So This is after he'd been gone from some time, and everybody in Bengal now was very anxious to see him. Vidyavachaspati came running in search of large boats and collected many. However, the impatient crowd had not the time to sit and wait. They crossed over just anyhow. Only the Supreme Personality can track the minds of people in the way Sri Chaitanya was now doing. The people, having passed over the Ganga, came directly to Vidyavachaspati and fell at his feet. It's also described in Chaitanya Charitamrita that wherever Mahaprabhu walked, they started taking the dust and the earth, so there were big holes in the roads. They said, "You are very saintly and fortunate because the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya is a guest in your house. Your good luck cannot be described. So now you kindly favor and save us. We are the most sinful persons, fallen into the darkest well of material existence. Kindly lead us and show us his lotus feet so that our wretched and bad lives may become successful at once." Sri Vidyavachaspati was extremely moved to see the sincerity of the people, and he began to weep with joy. Thousands of people were gathered there, and Sri Vachaspati led them all to his residence. The only words vibrated in the atmosphere were the chanting of the Lord's name. Sri Gaurasundar is an ocean of compassion, and he had incarnated specifically to liberate all living entities. Therefore, when he heard the tumultuous chanting of the holy names of Krishna, he came out of the house to bless the huge mass of fortunate souls and increase their pleasure. Before the joyous crowd, an enchanting figure appeared whose beauty was unparalleled. And this, Guru Maharaj writes about this when he says that Bhakti Vinod Thakur is describing this in the Golden Volcano. Guru Maharaj talks about how visioning Mahaprabhu in the rooftop of Vidyavachaspati's house. He came out of the house to bless the huge mass of fortunate souls and increase their pleasure. Before the joyous crowd, an enchanting figure appeared whose beauty was unparalleled. His effulgent face was always decorated with a gentle smile, and his eyes were effusive with transcendental joy. His golden form was ornamented with sandalwood tilak, and a flower garland hung loosely upon his chest. With a gait as graceful as an elephant, he walked and raised his long, exquisite, knee-length arms and chanted, "Hari, Hari," with a sound that resembled a thunderbolt. When the people saw Sri Gaurasundar, they jumped and danced in great exultation, chanting loudly, and then fell to the ground like sticks, offering obeisances. Getting up like the ocean waves, they raised their arms to the sky and prayed, "O Lord, please save us sinners." The Lord smiled benevolently and blessed them, saying, "May you develop love for Sri Krishna. Chant Krishna's names, worship him, and hear about his pastimes. Make Sri Krishna the greatest treasure of your lives." The people were happy beyond words to receive such benedictions. They repeatedly praised the Lord and pleaded, "Your advent in this world is a secret. You have appeared from the womb of Mother Sachi and Navadip only to liberate the whole universe. Yet we are so sinful that we could not recognize you and remained in the deep, dark well of ignorance, spoiling our human lives. You are an ocean of mercy. O Lord, the benefactor of all living entities, benedict us that we may never forget you." All this was happening by the potency of Sri Gaurachandra. These ordinary people were speaking so eloquently. Quickly, the whole village became excessively crowded. There was absolutely no empty space anywhere. In their eagerness, which increased with every passing moment, the people climbed to the treetops and roofs, hoping to catch just a glimpse of Sri Gaurasundar. The extraordinary phenomenon was that although the trees and roots were completely overcrowded, they neither collapsed nor fell nor crashed down. All this was sustained by the transcendental potency of the Lord. Ceaselessly and unblinkingly, the eyes of the huge throng remained fixed as one upon his perfect and beautiful face. Once having seen him, they had not the desire to return home. They chanted jubilantly and drunk in the captivating beauty of the Lord with their immovable glances. The Supreme Lord Sri Gaurasundara is the master of all mystic potencies. Hence, he could easily leave the residence Sri Vidyavachaspati. He could easily leave the residence of Sri Vidyavachaspati without Vachaspati's knowledge and depart for Kulia village. Similarly, the entranced people also did not see Gaurahari leave. Only Nityananda and a few other associates accompanied the Lord as he secretly left for Kulia. That's where the mutt is. Our Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mutt Navadip is in Kulia. Meanwhile, Sri Vachaspati began to look frantically everywhere for the Lord, and not finding him anywhere, Vachaspati concluded the Lord must have vanished and was thus grief-stricken. Lifting his face to the heavens, he began to weep bitterly. The people outside, suddenly noticing the Lord's absence, were confident. The Lord must have gone inside to avoid this commotion. Thus the entire mass of thousands began to chant loudly, making a resonance that echoed throughout the vaults of the entire three worlds. The mind of Sri Vidyavachaspati was still paralyzed with grief. He came out amongst the thronging mass and broke the sad news of the Lord's departure. He said, "The great jewel of the sannyas order, our beloved Sri Krishna Chaitanya, has deluded us, a most sinful lot, and disappeared. My dear brothers, truthfully, I do not know his destination and cannot even discern at what time he has departed tonight." Sri Vachaspati tried with many words to convince them of the truth, but he could not invoke their trust in him. They continued to believe that the Lord was hiding in seclusion to avoid the maddening crowd, and so they waited outside in great expectation. People came up to Sri Vachaspati and requested him, "Please take me inside to see the Lord. I promise you I am alone." They started chanting. They started catching his feet and entreating him, "We want to see him just once more with these eyes, then we can return home happily. Please place this prayer before the Lord, that sinners like us may see him. Surely he will not refuse you." Vachaspati patiently tried to tell them the truth, but failed to convince them of his sincerity. As time went by, the people realized that the Lord might not be coming, and they became impatient and frustrated. They spoke cutting words to Vachaspati. Someone said, "Vachaspati has hidden the rarest gem among sannyasis, or Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and then he is coming and telling us lies. Why should he object if we are liberated? What joy is there in saving oneself alone?" Another person complained, "The nature of a good person is that he is satisfied when others attain liberation. An ordinary soul simply thinks selfishly of his own betterment, but a saintly soul sees first to the salvation of others even before he considers himself." Yet another person said, "Even in ordinary social dealings, if one buys sweets and instead of sharing them with others, simply eats them by oneself, that is certainly considered an omission." Again, someone said, "This Brahmin is somewhat crooked in his behavior. He is not inclined to help others." On one hand, Vachaspati was greatly afflicted by the Lord's departure, and now, on the other, random blame was being hurled at him, causing him further extreme distress. From this anxious dilemma, he had no apparent means of relief. However, at that very moment, a Brahmin came and spoke softly into Vachaspati's ear. "Sri Chaitanya has gone to Kulia village. Now immediately do what you want with this information." The clouds of gloom cleared away and Vajaspati was happy again. He embraced the Brahmin warmly and rushed back to the crowd to tell them the news. He said, "All of you have been falsely blaming me, not knowing the actual facts, thinking I have hidden the Lord in my house. I have just received information from a Brahmin that the Lord is in Kolia village. Let us go and find out if this information is correct. If it is true, then you must agree that I am an innocent and upright Brahmin." The people responded with great appreciation, simultaneously chanting, "Hari, Hari," and all together with bubbling joy in their hearts, they left immediately for Kolia. The word spread speedily that the most exalted of sannyasis, Sri Chaitanya, was in Kolia. Meanwhile, the crowd had even multiplied itself several times over. Suddenly, it seemed that Kolia had much more magnetism than Vachaspati's village. The crowd had swelled to millions. Only Anantasesha could possibly describe this extraordinary phenomenon. No one could say from where this endless stream of people had magically appeared. It was difficult to tabulate the number of boats that had capsized, yet there was no loss of life, and everyone had managed to cross the Ganga. The miraculous happening was that each time a boat was on the verge of capsizing and drowning all, land appeared below it and prevented the calamity. All this was happening only by the desire of Lord Chaitanya. Whoever sings the glories of the Supreme Personality can easily cross over the material ocean as if it were as small as the hoofprint of a calf. Surely by his grace it is not surprising that those who were so eager to see the Lord could cross Ganga Devi without any untoward incidents. Countless thousands crossed the river on their own, all drowning in an ocean of joy. Once on the other side, they embraced each other, chanting loudly the Lord's holy name. It was a big day for making money. No one could calculate how much the boatmen earned. Makeshift markets selling a variety of wares suddenly appeared everywhere and did a bustling business. Gradually, every available space was filled up, and the whole town became an oceanic, fluid mass of people. Loud and clear, far above the hubbub, was the sound of the holy names of Sri Krishna. The all-pervasive chanting was fully intelligible, yet in spite of this tumult, the Lord remained in seclusion. When Sri Vidyavachaspati arrived in Kolia, he began searching here and there for the Lord. However, the Lord had declined to show himself in public. Thus, it became most difficult to locate his whereabouts. After a frantic search, Sri Vachaspati discovered the Lord, and as soon as he saw him, he fell to the ground like a stick, offering obeisances. Vachaspati began reciting verses repeatedly describing the present incarnation and pastimes of the Lord. He prayed, "O Lord, you have appeared as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just to liberate the whole universe. You have already liberated those who have fallen into this deep, dark well of material existence. Your mercy is as vast as the unlimited ocean. Therefore, kindly let this mercy touch my heart eternally. Seeing the entire creation steeped in mundane activities, you have showered your causeless mercy upon all souls, bestowing upon them love of Krishna. May you, the most magnanimous Supreme Personality, always reside within the core of my heart." Glorifying Sri Gaurasundar in this manner, he fell repeatedly at his feet. "I offer my humble respects at the feet of Sri Visharada, the father of both the illustrious Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Vidyavachaspati." Sri Vachaspati looked up at the at his dear Lord, and exhilarated by the shower of his merciful glances, stood up and began to extol again. With folded hands he prayed, O merciful Lord, I have one prayer. You are the supreme autocrat, acting according to your own sweet will, fully independent of anybody and anything. Others can know your mind only as much as you reveal it to them. You are not subject to the rules and regulations of anyone. Yet all the people outside do not comprehend this truth about you, and so they are exasperated and vilify me, saying that I have hidden you inside my house. They are angry with me, being unaware of the facts. Therefore, my Lord, kindly step outside and show yourself for just a moment. Then they will once again accept me as a truthful person, a Brahmin. Upon hearing his words, the Lord smiled and was immediately ready to comply with the request of the honest Brahmin, Sri Vachaspati. The Lord stepped outside, and the people became instantly drowned in an ocean of bliss. Everywhere people threw themselves to the ground, offering their obeisances. Each, according to his knowledge and capacity, began reciting verses eulogizing the Lord. Their joy continually increased, and hundreds of kirtan groups sprouted up from everywhere and began to sing sweetly. The holy name of Krishna resounded with melodious clarity, filling and vibrating in the concave vaults of the earth. This could happen only by the extraordinary potency of Sri Chaitanya. The Supreme Lord, now dressed as a sannyasi, initiated the congregational chanting of the holy name of Krishna. The name is so sublime that it gives one the taste of divine nectar. Our higher planets like Brahmaloka and Shivaloka are free from all distress simply by experiencing a tiny portion of that nectar. The great mystic yogis and sages are mad after a drop of that nectar. Anyone who out of gross illusion refutes the existence of such a supreme personality who is endowed with all potencies and opulence, loses all good qualities, status in society, and is shunned by everyone. Therefore, my dear brothers, simply worship the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. By hearing his transcendental pastimes, ignorance is destroyed, and simply by remembering him, all sin and suffering is extirpated. Therefore, worship the feet of he who is the jewel of all sannyasis. The Lord became ecstatic upon seeing kirtans being held everywhere. Tears cascaded down his cheeks as if Ganga Devi had manifested in his eyes and were now flowing freely in all directions. The Lord became immediately absorbed in the congregational chanting. Everything else faded into insignificance. Whichever kirtan group appeared in front, the Lord joined them in dancing with sublime joy. This multiplied the enthusiasm and bliss of that group, and they considered themselves most fortunate to be graced by the Lord in this way. Sri Nityananda, who is foremost among devotees who are mad with Krishna Prema, sometimes caught Sri Chaitanya and made him dance. Sometimes he danced along with the Lord, lost in the ecstasy of spiritual love. Sri Chaitanya now danced in ecstasy with full abandon, roaring loudly like a lion. Upon being heard, this roaring surely dissipates the despondency of all living entities. Lord Shiva, while meditating upon Sri Gauranga, became so intoxicated that when he dances, he becomes oblivious to his nakedness. Now the same Supreme Lord, Sri Gauranga, who by his potency creates the entire cosmic manifestation, and whom all the demigods are always eager to see, was dancing in full view of mortals. His advent had liberated the entire universe and sent the whole mass of people into waves of divine bliss. Yet the Lord was unaware of the crowd that had swelled and poured in from all directions to see him. He was absorbed in Krishna Prema and danced in unlimited ecstasy. Everyone in the town of Kolia was liberated by the Lord's presence. From the most elevated soul to the most fallen soul, all received the Lord's mercy. Whoever hears this narration will also become free from the shackles of karmic reactions. The compassionate Lord stayed outside long enough for everyone to see him and elevate their consciousness to a state of intense joy. Then he went inside, accompanied by his associates, and sat down, feeling their presence intensely. Just then a Brahmin came and tightly clasped the lotus feet of the Lord. He said, "O Lord, I have but one prayer. If you can spare just a little time, I may tell you. Without understanding the essence of the devotional path, I have committed a grievous offense by criticizing a Vaishnava." I would repeatedly shout at him and taunt, "Who is a Vaishnava in Kali Yuga, and just what is this kirtan?" In this way, I have condemned myself. Now, when I remember these incidents, my mind begins to burn up. "O Lord, you had the potency to liberate anyone, so kindly tell me how I may mitigate my sins." Sri Chaitanya smiled benignly upon hearing the straightforward and honest confession of the Brahmin. He said, "Please listen, O Brahmin. If one who has taken poison is administered nectar, the drink of immortality, then gradually the effects of the poison weaken and the body becomes immortal. So now I will reply to your question and tell you how this nectar works. All the criticisms you made, although even unwittingly, are equivalent to having drunk poison. So now you must drink the nectar of the name and pastimes of Sri Krishna with that very same mouth. From now on, use the same tongue that offended Vaishnavas to glorify them. Above all other activities, constantly glorify the Vaishnavas through songs, poems, or in any other way. The ambrosia of Krishna's pastimes is transcendent and blissful and can facilitate all the poisonous effects of the criticism of the Vaishnavas. I am telling you truly, glorification of the Vaishnavas and the pastimes of Sri Krishna is a method of purification for one who has criticized a Vaishnava unknowingly. If one gives up malpractices and offensive behavior and constantly glorifies the Supreme Lord and his unalloyed devotees, then one can destroy all sins. Otherwise, millions of pious activities and penances cannot counteract the offenses committed against a Vaishnava. Therefore, go now and practice glorifying the devotees of the Lord, and you will surely become freed from all sins. The devotees became very happy when they heard these wonderful instructions, and they responded by chanting, "Hari, Hari." The Lord had nicely explained the method of exoneration from the offense of Vaishnava blasphemy. One who disregards these instructions of Sri Chaitanya and criticizes a saintly person must drown in the ocean of grief, and those who accept these instructions of Sri Chaitanya as Vedic truth can simply cross the ocean of nescience. The next visitor was Devananda Pandit. When Lord Chaitanya was still in family life in Navadip, where he performed many transcendental pastimes, Pandit had not the desire to meet the Lord. He did not possess sufficient faith in the Lord, and so he avoided contact with him. Yet now, here in Kolia, Devananda was qualified and eagerly wanted to see the Lord. So why had he apparently changed? All such arrangements are actually in the merciful hands of Sri Krishna. Therefore, at the time Sri Chaitanya accepted the sannyas order and left home, Devananda Pandit had had the good fortune to meet and closely associate with Sri Prakeshwar Pandit. Prakeshwar Pandit was very dear to Lord Chaitanya. He was always absorbed in relishing the devotional mellows with the He was always observed in relishing the devotional mellows with Sri Krishna. Thereby he was such an elevated soul that he could purify the entire universe. When he danced, both the demigods and the demons were captivated. So this is description of Virkeshwara Pandit. In fact, as soon as he would begin to dance, by Sri Chaitanya's mercy, all the ecstatic symptoms like crying, shivering, roaring, perspiration, laughter, horripilation, and swooning in divine bliss would appear in his person. And it is important. It is impossible to describe all the devotional symptoms in Virkeshwara Pandit. By some providential arrangement, Virkeshwara Pandit came to stay in the house of Devananda Pandit. Devananda Pandit became increasingly pleased and impressed with the radiant appearance and unalloyed devotion to the Supreme Lord of his guest. He began to serve Virkeshwara with sincere devotion. When Virkeshwara Pandit would dance, he would walk around him with a cane, keeping the crowd away. If Virkeshwara fell swooning in ecstasy, Devananda would rush to catch him in his arms. He would take the dust from the feet of Virkeshwara and smear it over his own body with sincere humility and devotion. In this way, by serving Sri Virkeshwara and seeing his elevated devotional characteristics, there developed in Devananda Pandit a strong faith in Sri Chaitanya. From this incident, one can understand the words from the Puranas where it is stated, the devotion to the Supreme Lord is developed only through serving the pure devotees of the Lord. Devananda Pandit was undoubtedly a very pious and noble person. From his childhood, he had studied the Srimad Bhagavatam. He was calm and peaceful in control of his senses, unattached to material things, and had so many other good qualities. In spite of all these merits, he had not developed attraction to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya, even though he had personally met him. Nonetheless, by the grace of Sri Virkeshwara, his perverted intelligence had become rectified. Therefore, we find in the Vedic literature that service to a pure devotee is even higher than service to the Supreme Lord himself. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated, there may exist some doubt about attaining perfection by serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever in achieving perfection by serving the pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is clear that to gain the mercy of Sri Krishna, one must serve as unalloyed and surrendered devotee. Devananda Pandit had developed the right devotional attachment for Sri Gauranga due to his intimate association with Virkeshwara Pandit. Now he lay prostrate, offering obeisances and hugging the lotus feet of the Lord in great awe and humility. The Lord was very pleased to see the devotion and meekness in the mood of Devananda Pandit. He reached out to him and made him sit up. In this way, he forgave all his previous offenses and blessed him. The Lord said, since you have served Virkeshwara Pandit so well, I am able to see you here today. Virkeshwara is a manifestation and embodiment of Krishna's transcendental potency. Therefore, whosoever serves him well immediately attains the lotus feet of Krishna. Sri Krishna's favorite residence is the heart of Virkeshwara Pandit. Where and when Virkeshwara dances, Krishna himself is induced to dance at those places. Thus, the presence of Sri Virkeshwara converts anywhere into all the places of pilgrimage. Thus, the presence of Sri Virkeshwara converts anywhere into all the places of pilgrimage, the spiritual abode of Sri Krishna Vaikuntha. The Brahman Devananda Pandit folded his hands and began to pray to the Lord. O Lord, out of your infinite compassion, you have appeared in Navadip solely for the deliverance of the entire humanity. Previously, due to my sinful activities, I neither saw you nor experienced the divine bliss of your association. Your nature is to shower benediction upon every living soul. I pray that I may now develop undeviating attachment to your lotus feet. I have one special favor to ask of you. I need your divine guidance. I am completely without knowledge, yet I am trying to teach from a book full of knowledge. The Bhagavatam is meant to be taught only by the most realized souls. O Lord, please instruct me what to teach and how to explain the Bhagavat. The Lord began to explain the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Listen, O learned Brahman, interpret the Bhagavatam only in the light of bhakti, devotion. Do not enter into any other process. The Lord the beginning, middle, and end of the Bhagavatam establish that devotional service to the Supreme Lord is eternal, absolute, and infallible. Devotional service is the only reality, the absolute truth. At the time of the total dissolution of the cosmic creation, when everything is completely annihilated, only the reality of devotional service remains unaffected and perfect. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna does not give devotional service to everyone, but he easily offers liberation to an aspirant while holding the science of unalloyed, while hiding. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna does not give devotional service to everyone, but he easily offers liberation to an aspirant while hiding the science of unalloyed devotion. Only through his personal grace does he elevate someone to the path of bhakti. The philosophical conclusions on the path of bhakti available in the Srimad Bhagavatam have no parallel in any other scripture, just as all the incarnations of the Lord, like Matsya, Kurma, and so on, are self-manifest, appearing and disappearing on their own sweet will. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam is not a text composed by ordinary mortals. Being transcendental, the Bhagavatam also appears and disappears only by the will of Sri Krishna. The Bhagavatam, having previously disappeared, has once again appeared on the tongue of Srila Vedavyas by the causeless mercy of Sri Krishna. The esoteric truth about the Supreme Lord is inconceivable, as is the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the verdict of all scriptures. If one proudly claims to know and understand the Srimad Bhagavatam, then he is certainly ignorant about its real conclusions. On the other hand, if one is submissive and admits his lack of understanding, then the essence of the Bhagavatam will indeed be revealed to him. The Bhagavatam is saturated with divine Krishna prema. It is in fact the body of Sri Krishna, for it contains the confidential pastimes of Sri Krishna. Srila Vyasadeva, Srila Vedavyas, after having compiled the many different Puranas and Vedas, was still feeling a vacuum within himself. But when he finally spoke the Bhagavatam, he became completely satisfied in his heart. However, sometimes even someone engaged in trying to expound upon this great scripture might find himself in a dilemma, so be very careful. Therefore, the only way you must explain the entire Bhagavatam is through bhakti. In this way, you can clear away your offenses and you will experience sublime bliss in your heart. All scriptures conclude that devotion to Sri Krishna is the ultimate destination. Especially the Bhagavatam is imbued with the transcendental, supramundane exchanges of mellows with Krishna. Now return and study the Bhagavatam well and explain to everyone that devotional service to Krishna is the highest ambrosia. Devananda Pandit fell flat on the ground at the Lord's lotus feet, thinking of himself as the most fortunate soul. After surrendering his body, mind, and words to the Lord and offering repeated obeisances, he returned to his home. Thus, Gaurasundar instructed everyone about the actual position of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam actually teaches bhakti alone, so if one does not expound the path of devotional service while teaching the Bhagavatam, then he uselessly wastes words and energy and earns the fruit of offense. One who understands that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the treatise dedicated fully to the science of devotional service becomes a recipient of the special grace of Lord Krishna. The presence of the Bhagavatam in any house makes that house sanctified and free from all inauspiciousness. Worshipping the Bhagavatam is equivalent to worshipping Sri Krishna. Hearing and reading the Bhagavatam is unalloyed devotional service. There are two meanings of the word Bhagavat. One is the book Bhagavat, and the other is the person Bhagavat, who is the personification of Sri Krishna's mercy. By daily worshipping, studying, and hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, one is elevated to become a person Bhagavat. On the other hand, if a sinful person without the proper attitude reads the Srimad Bhagavatam, then due to a lack of the proper understanding, he will criticize and offend Sri Nityananda. Sri Nityananda is the embodiment of the essence and divine mellows of the Srimad Bhagavatam. One who perfectly understands this is truly an intelligent and fortunate soul. One who perfectly understands, On the other hand, if a sinful person without the proper attitude reads the Srimad Bhagavatam, then due to lack of the proper understanding, he will criticize and offend Sri Nityananda. Sri Nityananda is the embodiment of the essence and divine mellows of the Srimad Bhagavatam. One who perfectly understands this is truly an intelligent and fortunate soul. Sri Nityananda is continuously explaining the purport of the Bhagavatam with his 1,000 mouths even now. Although Sri Nityananda is unlimited, he is not able to fully complete his dissertation upon the Bhagavatam, which is unlimited, transcendental, and he's not able to fully complete his dissertation of... Sri Nityananda is continuously explaining the purport of the Bhagavatam with his 1,000 mouths even now. Although Sri Nityananda is unlimited, he is not able to fully complete his dissertation upon the Bhagavatam, which is unlimited, transcendental, and contains the conclusions of the path of bhakti. Thus the Lord taught everyone the real essence of Srimad Bhagavatam, using his discussion with Devananda Pandit as a means. All those who came with spiritual questions, the Lord answered to their full satisfaction. By coming to Kuliya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya blessed everyone, making all fortunate and glorious. Gazing fully enraptured, their vision remained glued upon the wondrous Lord in bliss. In this way, the Lord fulfilled everyone's desires and dissolved all their distress, making all his devotees float in an ocean of bliss. One who hears these pastimes with pleasure will certainly associate with the Lord directly. A person may be born in any family or caste. All is good if he hears about the transcendental pastimes of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Sri Nityananda are my life and soul. I, Vrindaban Das, humbly offer this song at their lotus feet. So that concludes chapter 3, Chapter 3, the deliverance of Sarvabhauma and the journey to West Bengal. Hariharaya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Hariharaya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Garadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Garadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhakta Raghunath Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhakta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath H.I. Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan H.I. Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jaite Vignana Shabista Puran Jaite Vignana Shabista Puran H.I. Gosai Jar Muitaradas H.I. Gosai Jar Muitaradas Dasabar Pararenu Mora Panchagras Dasabar Pararenu Mora Panchagras Tadir Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Tadir Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame More Abhilas Janame More Abhilas H.I. Gosai Jabe Braje Koilavas H.I. Gosai Jabe Braje Koilavas Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korila Prakash Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyash Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyash Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamudan Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamudan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyash Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyash Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamudan Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamudan Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bo Jai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Jai Saparikara Shri Shri Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Jo Ki Jai. Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtatara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtatara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishordas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Namachari Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Premasi Go Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Srila Vrindaban Das Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Bhagawat Ki Jai. Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Shri Vishvavaranya Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Ki Jai. Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Saparshada Shri Man Maha Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Koladvip Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Soquel Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Vrindaban Dham Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Govardhan Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Ju Ki Jai. Shri Srila Jiva Goswami Tirobab Mahotsav Ki Jai, Srila Jagadish Pandit Tirobab Mahotsav Ki Jai. All the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj Ki Jai.